Commander Jake Morrison stared out the window of the shuttle as it moved toward the biggest ship he had ever seen. The Galactic Council's flagship, called Serenity, was so large that Earth's moon could fit inside it. His hands were sweating, but he kept his face calm. This was humanity's first meeting with alien races, and he could not mess it up. "Jake, you okay?" Dr. Lisa Carter asked from the seat next to him. She was the smartest person Jake knew, an expert on alien life forms. Her job was to help humans understand these new species they were about to meet. "I'm fine," Jake said, though. His stomach felt like it was full of rocks. Behind them, Lieutenant Danny Walsh checked his weapon for the 10th time. Danny was their security officer, a tough soldier who never backed down from a fight. The shuttle docked with a soft bump. Jake took a deep breath and stood up. "Remember, we represent all of humanity today. Let's make a good first impression." The airlock opened, and they stepped into a hall that was bigger than a football stadium. The ceiling was so high that Jake could barely see it. Strange lights floated in the air without wires or supports. The walls showed moving pictures of different planets and stars. "Welcome, humans," a voice said. Jake turned and saw something that made his blood go cold. The creature was 12 feet tall, with muscles like a gorilla. Its skin was gray like stone, and its eyes glowed red. When it spoke, Jake could see teeth that looked like they could bite through steel. "I am Korath, assessor for the Galactic Council," the creature said. "I will test your species to see where you belong in our galaxy." Jake forced himself to stay calm. "I'm Commander Jake Morrison. This is Dr. Lisa Carter and Lieutenant Danny Walsh. We're here to represent Earth and all humans." Korath looked down at them like they were bugs. "Yes, I can see you're very small. Come, the council waits." They followed Korath through halls filled with aliens that Jake had only dreamed about. Some floated in the air like ghosts. Others moved so fast they were just blurs. One group had skin that looked like living crystal. Jake tried not to stare, but it was hard. These beings looked like gods compared to humans. The council chamber was a giant circle with 12 thrones. Each throne held a different type of alien. Jake felt very small as they walked to the center of the room. "Humans of Earth," a voice boomed from everywhere at once. "You wish to join the galactic community. First, we must know what kind of species you are." Korath pulled out a device that looked like a mix between a scanner and a gun. "This will measure your physical abilities. Do not be afraid. It will not hurt." Blue light shot from the device and covered Jake from head to toe. He felt a strange tingling, but nothing painful. The light moved to Lisa, then to Danny, and back to Jake. After a few minutes, the scanning stopped. Korath looked at the results on a screen. His red eyes got wider. He looked at the screen again, then at the humans, then back at the screen. "This cannot be right," Korath said. He scanned them again. The same results appeared. "What's wrong?" Jake asked, though he had a bad feeling about the answer. Korath turned to face the council. "Honorable members, the results are not surprising. This species called humans ranks last in every physical measurement we have." Jake felt his heart sink. Lisa's face went pale. Danny's hand moved closer to his weapon. "Last in strength," Korath continued. "Last in speed, last in reflexes. Their bones are weak. Their muscles are small. They live for a very short time compared to other species. Their intelligence is only average." One of the council members, a creature that looked like a floating jellyfish, spoke up. "How did such a weak species survive long enough to build spaceships?" "Unknown," Korath said. "Perhaps they are very lucky." Jake felt anger starting to burn in his chest. These aliens were talking about humans like they were broken toys. He wanted to tell them about human history, about wars and exploration, and the will to never give up. but he kept quiet. Based on these results, Korath announced, humans must be classified as a protected species. They are too weak to survive in the galaxy without help. What does that mean? Lisa asked. A new alien spoke up. This one looked like a giant bird with 4 arms. It means you will live on special worlds where nothing can hurt you. Other species will bring you food and protect you from danger. You will be safe, like pets. Jake felt his hands form fists. Danny took a step forward, but Jake held up a hand to stop him. You're saying we're too weak to take care of ourselves? Jake asked. His voice was very quiet, but there was something dangerous in it. Yes, Korath said, but do not worry. The Council is kind to weak species. You will have good lives. The floating jellyfish added, many protected species are very happy. You will have no stress, no danger, no need to fight or work hard. Jake looked at Lisa and Danny. He saw the same anger in their eyes that he felt in his heart. These aliens thought they were being kind, but they were taking away everything that made humans human. We understand, Jake said slowly. When do we start this protection? Immediately, Korath said. We have already chosen 3 planets for your people. They have nice weather and no dangerous animals. Your spaceships will be taken apart, so you cannot hurt yourselves with technology. As they were led away to their sanctuary worlds, Jake made a promise to himself. These aliens had no idea what they had just done. They thought humans were weak, because they measured the wrong things. They didn't know about human anger, or human stubbornness, or what happened when humans were pushed too far. The aliens were about to learn that being physically weak and being helpless were 2 very different things. Jake smiled, but it was not a happy smile. It was the smile of someone planning to prove the whole galaxy wrong. 6 months had passed since humans were sent to their safe worlds. The planet Haven was supposed to be one of these safe places. It had good air, clean water, and no dangerous animals. The Galactic Council had picked it carefully for the weak. Humans. Tony Rodriguez was working at the fire station when the alarm went off. He was a firefighter, one of the few jobs humans were still allowed to do. The Council thought fighting fires was safe enough for the protected species. What's the emergency? Tony asked as he ran to the fire truck. Spaceship crash in Sector 7, his partner Amy Sullivan said. Amy was a paramedic who worked with the fire team. It's one of those fast alien ships. Tony knew about those ships. The Velkari built them. The Velkari were the speed specialists of the galaxy. They could move faster than any other species, and their ships were just as quick. The fire truck raced through the streets of Haven's main city. When they got to Sector 7, Tony saw a sight that made his stomach drop. The Velkari ship had crashed into a fuel depot. Flames were everywhere, and black smoke filled the sky. The pilot might still be alive, Amy said, checking her medical equipment. Council rescue teams are 20 minutes away. The dispatcher's voice crackled over the radio. Wait for proper equipment. Tony looked at the burning wreck. 20 minutes was too long. If someone was in there, they would be dead by then. He grabbed his gear and started running toward the flames. Tony, wait, Amy called after him. We're supposed to wait for the council teams. Since when do firefighters wait? Tony shouted back. Someone needs help. The heat hit Tony like a wall when he got close to the ship. The metal was so hot it glowed orange. Normal humans weren't supposed to be able to handle this kind of heat. The council had said humans were too weak, but Tony wasn't thinking about what he was supposed to be able to do. He was thinking about whoever was trapped inside. His grandfather had been a firefighter too, and he always said the same thing. You don't leave people behind, no matter what. Tony found a hole in the ship's side. He could hear something moving inside. Someone was alive. The hole was small and jagged, with sharp metal edges that would cut anyone trying to get through. "Help," a weak voice called from inside. "Please help." That was all Tony needed to hear. He squeezed through the hole, feeling the hot metal burn through his protective suit. Inside the ship, smoke made it hard to see. Emergency lights flashed red, making everything look like a nightmare. Tony found the pilot trapped under a piece of the ship's ceiling. The alien was thin and tall, with skin that looked like it was made of silver. This had to be one of the Valkyrie, the fastest species in the galaxy. "Don't worry," Tony said, even though he wasn't sure the alien could understand him. "I'm going to get you out." The piece of metal on top of the alien was huge. It had to weigh at least 300 pounds. Tony was strong for a human, but humans were supposed to be the weakest species. The council had tested them and proved it. Tony didn't care what the test said. He grabbed the metal beam and pulled. His muscles screamed in pain. The metal didn't move. Tony pulled harder, and something in his back made a popping sound. Still, the beam didn't move. The alien looked at him with big silver eyes. "You cannot move it. You are too small. Save yourself." "Shut up," Tony said. He wasn't angry at the alien. He was angry at the situation, angry at the fire, angry at the idea that someone might die because he wasn't strong enough. Tony changed his position and tried again. This time, he didn't think about how much the beam weighed or how weak humans were supposed to be. He thought about his grandfather, about Amy waiting outside, about the alien who would die if he gave up. The beam moved. Just an inch, but it moved. Tony kept pulling. His vision started to go black around the edges. His arms felt like they were going to fall off, but the beam kept moving, inch by inch. "Impossible," the alien whispered. "Council tests show humans cannot lift this much weight." "Council tests are stupid," Tony said through gritted teeth. He gave one final pull, and the beam moved enough for the alien to crawl out. Tony grabbed the alien and carried him toward the hole in the ship's side. Outside, he could hear Amy calling his name. The alien was lighter than a human, but Tony's strength was almost gone. His legs shook with each step. They made it to the hole, just as part of the ship's ceiling fell down where they had been standing. Tony pushed the alien through first, then squeezed through himself. His legs gave out as soon as he was outside, and he fell to his knees. Amy ran over with her medical kit. "Tony, are you okay? What happened to your leg?" Tony looked down and saw blood soaking through his pants. Something had cut him when he squeezed through the hole, but he hadn't noticed. Now that the emergency was over, the pain hit him like a truck. "I'm fine," Tony said, even though his leg felt like it was on fire. "Check the alien first." Amy looked at him like he was crazy, but she started examining the Valkyrie pilot. The alien's silver eyes never left Tony's face. "You are hurt because of me," the alien said. "Why did you not wait for proper rescue teams?" "Because proper rescue teams take time," Tony said. "And you didn't have time." The alien tried to sit up, but Amy pushed him back down. "Don't move. You might have internal injuries." "I do not understand," the alien said to Tony. "Council records show humans are weak. You should not have been able to move that beam." Tony laughed, even though it hurt his leg. Council records don't know everything. When the council rescue teams finally arrived, they found Tony sitting against the fire truck while Amy bandaged his leg. The Valkyrie pilot was stable and would recover completely. The rescue team leader was a Thuman, one of the strong species. He looked at the wreckage of the ship, then at Tony, then back at the wreckage. "How did you get the pilot out?" The human asked. "Our scans show the main support beam was blocking the exit. That beam weighs 412 pounds. I moved it," Tony said simply. "Impossible." Humans can only lift a maximum of 200 pounds according to council tests. Tony looked up at the big alien. Then your tests are wrong. The Thuman made notes on his scanner. This will need to be reported to the council. Humans are not supposed to be capable of this. After the rescue teams left, Amy sat down next to Tony. You know they're going to ask a lot of questions about this, right? Let them ask, Tony said. He looked at the burned wreckage of the alien ship. Maybe it's time they learned that their tests don't measure everything. What do you mean? Tony smiled. They tested our muscles and our bones and our reflexes. But they never tested our stubbornness. They never tested what happens when we get angry enough to do impossible things. Amy nodded slowly. You think this is going to cause problems? I think this is going to cause changes, Tony said. The council thinks they know what humans are capable of. Today, one human proved them wrong. Tomorrow, maybe more humans will do the same. In the distance, Tony could see council ships landing to investigate the crash. He knew they would want to interview him, to run more tests, to figure out how a weak human had done something impossible. Tony wasn't worried. Let them test all they wanted. They would find out what humans had always known. When someone needs help, you don't worry about whether you're strong enough. You just help, and somehow, you find the strength you need. The galaxy was about to learn that humans weren't weak. They were just getting started. Dr. Sarah Mitchell was having a good day until the alarms started screaming. She was working in her lab on the research station, orbiting Kepler 442, studying old alien artifacts. The council had decided this was safe work for humans, since it was just looking at old things that couldn't hurt anyone. Sarah, we have a problem, Kevin Brooks called from the communications room. Kevin was her best graduate student, smart and eager to learn. There are ships coming toward us, and they're not answering our calls. Sarah put down the artifact she was studying and hurried to the communications room. On the screen, she could see 5 ships moving fast toward their station. The ships were sleek and silver, with designs that hurt to look at directly. Those are Zephyrian ships, Sarah said, feeling ice form in her stomach. The Zephyrians were the smartest species in the galaxy. They were so intelligent that other aliens could barely understand how their minds worked. Why would Zephyrians come here? Asked Carlos Vega, the station's technician. We're just a research station. Sarah had a bad feeling about this. Get me a connection to the council emergency channel. I'm trying, Kevin said, working at his controls. Something is blocking our signals. The lead Zephyrian ship sent a message. The voice that came through the speakers was cold and mechanical. Human research station, you will surrender immediately. Do not resist, and you will not be harmed. Sarah's hands went cold. They're slavers. They want to capture us. But we're a protected species, Carlos said. The council said no one was allowed to hurt us. The council isn't here, Sarah said. She looked around the communications room at her team. Besides Kevin and Carlos, there was Helen Davis, their shuttle pilot, and 3 other graduate students. 8 humans total, against 5 ships full of the smartest aliens in the galaxy. The Zephyrian voice came again. You have 60 seconds to surrender. If you do not comply, we will take you by force. Sarah felt something she hadn't felt in months. Since the council had declared humans weak, she had started to believe it herself. But now, looking at her terrified students, the old Sarah came back. The Sarah who had climbed mountains, who had explored dangerous caves, who had never backed down from a challenge. Helen, can our shuttle outrun their ships? Sarah asked. No way, Helen said. Zephyrian ships are too fast. Carlos, what weapons do we have? None. This is a research station. We have mining tools and lab equipment, but no weapons. Sarah smiled. And it wasn't a nice smile. Then we make weapons. Sarah, we can't fight Zephyrians, Kevin said. They're too smart. They'll think of everything we might do before we do it. That's their weakness, Sarah said. They think too much. They plan for logical responses, but humans aren't always logical. Sarah ran to the supply room with her team following behind. She started pulling things off the shelves. Mining charges, chemical supplies, metal pipes, electronic components. What are you doing? One of the graduate students asked. I'm getting angry, Sarah said. And when humans get angry, we get creative. The Zephyrian ships docked with the station. Sarah could hear footsteps in the halls outside. The slavers were coming. Kevin, take these mining charges and go to Section B, Sarah said, handing him a bag of explosives. Carlos, you know the stations. Power systems. Can you overload them? Yeah, but that would be dangerous, Carlos said. Good. Helen, I need you to do something crazy with the shuttle. How crazy are we talking? Sarah looked at her pilot. Crazy enough to ram a Zephyrian ship. Helen grinned. Now you're speaking my language. The door to their section exploded inward. 3 Zephyrians walked in, wearing armor that looked like it was made of liquid metal. They were tall and thin, with large heads and eyes that seemed to see everything at once. Humans, the lead Zephyrian said. You should have surrendered. Now we must use force. Yeah, about that, Sarah said. She was holding something behind her back. I have a question for you. Speak quickly. We have other stations to visit. Do you know what this is? Sarah brought her hand forward, showing a small device she had built from lab equipment. The Zephyrian scanned it with his eyes. A crude chemical explosive, primitive and ineffective. Wrong, Sarah said, and pressed the button. The device didn't explode. Instead, it released a cloud of gas that filled the room. The Zephyrians stumbled backward, their superior senses overwhelmed by the mix of chemicals Sarah had created. What is this? The lead Zephyrian coughed. Pepper spray, Sarah said. We use it on Earth to stop people who are bothering us. While the Zephyrians were blind and choking, Kevin triggered his mining charges in Section B. The explosions shook the whole station. Carlos overloaded the power systems, causing the lights to flicker and sparks to fly from the walls. Helen ran to the shuttle bay. Instead of trying to escape, she did exactly what Sarah had asked. She aimed the shuttle at the largest Zephyrian ship and hit the engines at full power. The Zephyrians were smart, but they weren't ready for humans who fought like cornered animals. They had planned for logical resistance, not for a species that would blow up their own station to stop invaders. This is not logical behavior, one of the Zephyrians said, still rubbing his eyes from the pepper spray. We're not a logical species, Sarah said. She picked up a metal pipe from the floor. We are an angry species. The fight that followed was nothing like the Zephyrians had expected. Sarah and her team didn't fight with strategy or careful planning. They fought like their lives depended on it, because they did. Carlos rigged the station's artificial gravity to turn on and off randomly, making the Zephyrians stumble and fall. Kevin used mining equipment to block hallways and create traps. The graduate students threw everything they could find at the invaders. Helen's shuttle hit the Zephyrian ship at full speed. The crash destroyed both ships, but it also damaged the slavers' other vessels. The Zephyrians were trapped on the station with very angry humans. We have superior intelligence, the lead Zephyrian said as Sarah cornered him in the lab. We should be able to defeat you easily. Intelligence isn't everything, Sarah said. Sometimes you need something else. What? Sarah looked around at her destroyed lab, at her scared but determined students, at the Zephyrian who thought humans were just weak primitives. Fury, she said. Pure, simple fury at anyone who threatens our people. The Zephyrian raised his weapon. But Sarah was faster. She swung the metal pipe and knocked the weapon out of his hands. Then she kept swinging until the Zephyrian fell down and didn't get up. When the Council rescue ships arrived 6 hours later, they found something impossible. All 5 Zephyrian ships were destroyed or damaged beyond repair. 17 Zephyrians were dead, including their tactical commander, who was supposed to be one of the smartest beings in the galaxy. Not a single human had died. The Council investigators couldn't understand what had happened. How had 8 weak humans defeated an entire Zephyrian raiding fleet? Sarah Mitchell sat in the ruins of her lab, tired and covered in dirt, but alive. When the Council investigators asked her how they had won, she gave them a simple answer. You tested our muscles and our brains and our reflexes. But you never tested our anger. You never tested what happens when someone threatens our family. The investigator, a floating jellyfish alien, looked confused. Anger is not a tactical advantage. It makes creatures act without thinking. Sarah laughed. That's where you're wrong. When humans get angry enough, we don't stop thinking. We start thinking differently. We stop worrying about what's supposed to be possible and start focusing on what needs to be done. She stood up and looked out the window at the wreckage of the Zephyrian ships floating in space. The Council keeps calling us weak, Sarah said. But weak things don't survive on a planet like Earth. Weak things don't build spaceships and explore. The galaxy, we're not weak. We're just peaceful most of the time. And when you are not peaceful? Sarah's smile was sharp as a knife. When we're not peaceful, we're the most dangerous thing in the galaxy, and the Zephyrians just proved it. The emergency session of the Galactic Council was unlike anything in the organization's 1,000-year history. Representatives from all 12 species filled the great chamber, but for the first time, they looked afraid. Korath stood at the center of the room, his gray skin paler than usual. The big Thuman who had once been so confident about human weakness now held a datapad with shaking hands. Honored council members, Korath began, his voice much quieter than before. We have a problem. A very big problem. The floating jellyfish that served as council speaker rippled with concern. Speak plainly, Assessor. What has happened with the humans? Korath activated a holographic display that filled the air above the chamber. Images appeared showing destroyed ships, damaged stations, and most disturbing of all, aliens and medical facilities. In the 6 months since we classified humans as a protected species, there have been 47 incidents involving human-alien conflicts. A bird like Quellion spread its 4 wings in confusion. Conflicts? But humans are weak. How can there be conflicts? That's what we thought, Korath said. He pressed a button, and the first image appeared. This is the wreckage of a Velkari speed racer. The pilot crashed on the human world haven. According to our calculations, the main support beam blocking the exit weighed 412 pounds. Impossible for a human to move, said a crystal-skinned Luxarian. That's what we thought, Korath repeated. But firefighter Tony Rodriguez not only moved it, he carried the pilot to safety while suffering a serious leg injury. When questioned, Rodriguez said, and I quote, "I didn't think about whether I could do it. I just did it." The council members shifted uncomfortably. This didn't match their understanding of human limitations. Korath showed the next image. This is what remains of 5 Zephyrian slaver ships. They attacked a human research station with 8 occupants. All 17 Zephyrians died. 0 humans died. The chamber erupted in shocked voices. Zephyrians were the smartest species in the galaxy. How could humans, ranked as having only average intelligence, defeat them? How is this possible? Demanded the Zephyrian representative, a tall figure with a large dome-shaped head. Our tactical computers show the probability of human victory at 0.003%. Dr. Sarah Mitchell, the human leader, gave us an explanation, Korath said. He activated an audio recording. Sarah's voice filled the chamber, tired but strong. "You tested our muscles and our brains and our reflexes, but you never tested our anger. You never tested what happens when someone threatens our family." "Anger is not a strategic advantage," the Zephyrian said. "It causes poor decision-making." Koreth showed more images. "These incidents suggest otherwise." Captain Ryan O'Brien held off an entire Thuman assault ship using nothing but a damaged cargo hauler. Engineer Patricia Holmes rebuilt the space station's defenses in real time while under attack. Teacher Gary Thompson organized human children to escape from Zephyrian kidnappers. Each image showed the same pattern. Humans doing things that should have been impossible, driven by something the Council didn't understand. "I still don't comprehend," said a gas cloud Etherian, its voice like wind through pipes. "How do emotions translate into increased physical capabilities?" Koreth had prepared for this question. "I consulted the human database about their home planet, Earth. Council members, we made a terrible mistake. The holographic display changed to show images of Earth, but these weren't the peaceful scenes the Council had seen before. These showed volcanoes, earthquakes, hurricanes, ice ages, and predators with massive teeth and claws. Earth is not a normal planet," Koreth said. "It's what humans call a death world. Everything on this planet tried to kill them for millions of years." The chamber fell silent as the reality sank in. Volcanic eruptions that could destroy cities. Ice ages that lasted thousands of years. Predators that hunted in packs. Diseases that killed half their population. Earthquakes that swallowed entire civilizations. Koreth showed images of human history. People climbing mountains, exploring frozen wastelands, sailing across dangerous oceans. For millions of years, any human who gave up when things looked hopeless died. Only the stubborn ones lived long enough to have children. Humans aren't weak. They're the survivors of the most dangerous planet in the known galaxy. A Velkari representative, moving so fast he was just a blur, spoke up. "But our tests showed they had limited physical capabilities." "Our tests measured their resting capabilities," Koreth said. "We never tested what they call adrenaline response. When humans believe their family or friends are in danger, their bodies produce chemicals that make them temporarily stronger, faster, and more resistant to pain." "How much stronger?" asked the Thuman representative. "According to human medical data, up to 5 times their normal strength. Their reflexes increase by 40%. They can ignore injuries that would disable other species." The council members looked at each other with growing alarm. Koreth continued, "But the physical changes are only part of it. The real danger is psychological. When humans get angry enough, they stop thinking about their own safety. They stop calculating odds. They focus entirely on protecting their people or defeating their enemies." "That sounds like madness," the Zephyrian said. "From our perspective, yes, but from a survival perspective, it's brilliant. A human who's angry enough doesn't care if victory is impossible. They just keep fighting until they win or die, and they usually win." Koreth showed the final set of images. These were recent reports from across the galaxy. Humans working as emergency responders, pushing themselves beyond their supposed limits. Humans in dangerous jobs, refusing to quit when things got difficult. Humans helping other species, even when it meant risking their own lives. "We thought we were protecting them," Koreth said, "but we were actually protecting the galaxy from them. By keeping humans in safe environments, we kept them calm. But when threatened, they become something else entirely." The council speakers' jellyfish body pulsed with concern. "What do you recommend, Assessor?" Koreth straightened his massive frame. "Immediate reclassification. Humans are not a protected species. They are what I'm calling a potential extinction event." Gasps echoed through the chamber. "Think about it," Koreth continued. "Humans have been in space for less than a century, but they've already spread to dozens of worlds. They adapt to any environment. They turn problems into opportunities. They never give up. What happens if they decide the Council is a threat? Asked the Quellion. Korath was quiet for a long moment. Based on what I've seen, they would find a way to win. Even if victory seemed impossible, they would keep fighting until they either won or died. And given their track record, they would probably win. The chamber was silent as council members absorbed this information. Finally, the speaker spoke. All in favor of reclassifying humans as a potential extinction event? Every hand, wing, tentacle, and energy field in the chamber rose in agreement. Motion carried, the speaker said. Korath, draft new protocols immediately. And send a message. To Commander Morrison. What should the message say? The speaker's body dimmed with what looked like exhaustion. Tell him we need to talk, and tell him we're sorry. As the council session ended, Korath looked once more at the data showing human. Impossible victories. He had initially thought humans were weak because they scored poorly on standard tests. Now he realized that standard tests couldn't measure the most important human trait, the absolute refusal to accept defeat when something they cared about was at stake. The galaxy was about to learn what Earth had known for millions of years. Never corner a human. Because they don't fight fair, they don't quit, and they really don't like being told something is impossible. 1 year later, Admiral Jake Morrison stood in the same council chamber where humans had once been declared the weakest species in the galaxy. But everything had changed. The 12 thrones were still there, but now there was a 13th throne in the center of the circle. A human throne. Jake's throne. Admiral Morrison, the council speaker said, its jellyfish body pulsing with nervous colors. Thank you for coming. Jake looked around the chamber at the alien faces that had once looked down on humanity with pity. Now they looked at him with something very different. Respect mixed with fear. You called this meeting, Jake said simply. What do you need? Korath, the big Thuman who had once tested human weakness, stepped forward. He looked much older now, and his red eyes held a wariness that hadn't been there before. There's a situation in the Outer Rim, Korath said. The Draconis system is under attack by something we've never seen before. Our best fleets can't stop them, Jake nodded. In the past year, this had become normal. When the galaxy faced a crisis that seemed impossible to solve, they called the humans. When diplomacy failed and war seemed certain, they called the humans. When other species gave up hope, they called the humans. What kind of attackers? Jake asked. A new alien, one of the crystal-skinned Luxarians, spoke up. Mechanical beings. They don't negotiate. They don't retreat. They just destroy everything in their path. Our tacticians say the situation is hopeless, added a Velkari, speaking slowly instead of at their usual lightning speed. The machines adapt to every strategy we try. Jake almost smiled. And you want humans to fix it because we're too stubborn? To know when something is hopeless? Yes, the council speaker said without embarrassment. That is exactly why we want humans to handle it. Jake thought about how much had changed. A year ago, humans had been seen as weak pets who needed protection. Now they were the galaxy's emergency response team. The change had started with small things. When other species had problems they couldn't solve, they would quietly ask for human help. At first, the council had tried to stop this. But then more incidents happened, and humans kept achieving impossible victories. Captain Beth Williams had stopped a civil war on Kepler-22 by simply refusing to leave until both sides agreed to talk. Engineer Carlos Vega had fixed a space station that 3 different alien teams had declared unfixable. Dr. Lisa Carter had found a cure for a disease that had puzzled Zephyrian scientists for decades. Each success made the galaxy more willing to admit what they had learned. Humans didn't just refuse to accept failure. They seem to make success possible through sheer determination. I'll need a ship and a crew, Jake said. You can have anything you want, Korath said quickly. The entire galactic fleet is at your disposal. I don't want your ships, Jake said. I want human ships with human crews. The aliens looked confused. But human ships are smaller and less advanced than ours, the Luxarian said. That's not what makes them effective, Jake replied. An hour later, Jake was aboard the UHS Righteous Fury, the newest ship in the human fleet. The name had been chosen carefully. It reminded everyone, human and alien alike, what made humans dangerous. Lieutenant Danny Walsh, now promoted to commander, met Jake at the airlock. We're ready to go, Admiral. The crew is excited about this mission. Excited? Jake asked. We're heading into a battle that 3 different alien fleets couldn't win. Danny grinned. Like I said, the crew is excited. Jake looked around the ship's bridge. The crew was small compared to alien vessels, but every human on board had the same expression. They were ready for a fight. Dr. Lisa Carter was now the head of interspecies relations, but she had insisted on coming along. I've been studying these mechanical beings, she said. The other species tried to defeat them with superior technology or clever tactics. And, Jake asked, they never tried to make the machines angry. Jake raised an eyebrow. You can make machines angry? If they're smart enough to adapt to tactics, they're smart enough to have emotions. And if they have emotions, humans can figure out how to use those emotions against them. The Righteous Fury jumped to hyperspace, heading for the Draconis system. In the ship's common area, Jake could hear the crew talking and laughing. They weren't worried about facing an enemy that had defeated 3 alien fleets. They were planning how to win. This was what the galaxy had failed to understand about humans. Other species saw a hopeless situation and calculated their odds of survival. Humans saw a hopeless situation and started figuring out how to change it. When they arrived at Draconis, Jake saw the problem immediately. The mechanical beings had ships that looked like giant insects made of black metal. They moved in perfect formations and seemed to predict every attack before it happened. They learned from every battle, reported Commander Helen Davis from the tactical station. Every strategy the aliens tried, these machines adapted to counter. Then we don't use strategy, Jake said. We use chaos. What followed was unlike any battle the galaxy had ever seen. Instead of careful formations and planned attacks, the human ships moved like a swarm of angry bees. They changed tactics every few minutes, never giving the machines time to adapt. When the mechanical beings tried to predict human behavior, they found it impossible. Humans didn't follow logical patterns. They followed emotions, instincts, and pure stubbornness. Captain Tony Rodriguez, now commanding his own ship after becoming famous for the Haven rescue, flew his vessel directly into the enemy formation. If you can't outthink them, confuse them, he shouted over the radio. The machines tried to adapt, but adaptation required understanding. And there was no understanding humans who fought like their lives depended on victory, because for humans, they always did. The battle lasted 6 hours. When it was over, the mechanical fleet was destroyed, and not a single human ship had been lost. Jake stood in the council chamber once again, this time giving his report. The alien faces that looked back at him showed a mixture of awe and acceptance. How did you defeat an enemy that had adapted to counter our best strategies? The Zephyrian representative asked. We didn't use your strategies, Jake said. We used human strategies. We got angry, we got stubborn, and we refused to quit until we won. The council speaker pulsed with what might have been approval. Admiral Morrison, the council has a proposal. I'm listening. We want to establish the human emergency response. Course, whenever the galaxy faces a crisis that seems impossible to solve, humans would take the lead. Jake considered this. What would humans get in return? Full council membership, equal voting rights, and recognition that humans are not the weakest species in the galaxy. What are we then? Korath stepped forward. You're the species that makes impossible things possible. You're the species that never gives up. You're the species that the rest of us call when we need miracles. Jake looked around the chamber at the aliens who had once pitied humanity as weak and helpless. Now they understood what humans had always known. Strength wasn't just about muscles or speed or intelligence. Real strength was the refusal to accept defeat. Real strength was the willingness to keep fighting when everyone else gave up. Real strength was the ability to get angry enough to move unmovable objects and defeat undefeatable enemies. We accept, Jake said, but we have one condition. Name it, the council speaker said immediately. Jake smiled, and it was the same dangerous smile he had worn a year ago when the aliens first called humans weak. Stop calling us the weakest species, he said. We were never weak. We were just getting started. As Jake left the council chamber for the last time as humanity's representative, he thought about how much had changed. Humans were no longer seen as pets who needed protection. They were seen as the species you called when protection wasn't enough. When survival required something more than logic or strength or speed, they were the species you called when you needed someone angry enough to do impossible things. And the galaxy was finally beginning to understand that when humans got angry enough, there was no such thing as impossible. There was only stubborn, furious determination to keep fighting until the job was done. The age of human weakness was over. The age of human fury had begun.